This is like even Quest Rogue. You have a 1 mana hero power. Everything costs an even amount of mana, except for a couple things that don't. And you need to hero power with the odd mana to be able to make up for the fact that everything's even. And then the even stuff advances your quest for 8 drops.
Honestly, that is exactly what it feels like. Welcome to episode 557 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, July 30th, 2026 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergan, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Jeremy T., Bottle Caps, Crumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, May, NY Kiwi, Spine, Grizzly Bear, and by our patrons of the week, Sasnak and Livdera. You can go to patreon.com/CoinConcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, bonus post-show content, early access to new episodes, and help support the show in the process. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. So, Life and Ladder, how's everyone's experience with the Void?
Well, I have been bouncing around a little bit. I was playing the Void Soul Demon Hunter, partly because we had originally been thinking that that would be what we would cover for Decksplanations today. And this happens sometimes. I can see that it's a powerful deck. It's powerful when my opponents play it. It feels powerful when I play it. But I was not winning with it. To be fair, I was up at higher ranks for me, and so going even is about as good as it goes when you're at the top of where you usually hit. But I was not going even, I was going negative. So I am no longer in top 1K, barely. We'll see if I can boot myself back in there tomorrow, right before the end of the month. Or if I just plunge myself out of 11x range entirely. It's a coin flip at this point. But yeah, it's always frustrating when you're like, this is the best deck. Yeah. And just for whatever reason, I'm not quite clicking with it. And it's just not quite doing what it feels like it should do. So I tried some Z Shaman. Z Shaman was fun. Z Shaman's actually the meta breaker from VS today, or one of them besides the obvious choices. And that has a fun little mini game in a way of trying to figure out how do I play my minions so that I get an impactful battle cry to be my 5th minion. Which battle cry do I most need? Because it's not like there's always one. If you sort of choose the wrong one that you're heading for, that can make or break the game. And that was fun. I was doing pretty well with that until I wasn't. And then I had a moment with my husband where he was saying, I had encouraged him to get the Hunter deck. But he hasn't really played much for months. So he was trying and when he's first trying something, he doesn't want me to look over his shoulder at all, which is valid. So I had not been looking over his shoulder. Then he says something to me about how it's not that good a deck. And I was like, I was silent for a minute. And I was like, well, it is if you know how to play it. And he was like, wow.
Shots fired. Okay.
Then I was like, okay, maybe I phrased that poorly. But after this happened, and he ribbed me appropriately for it, he was like, well, why aren't you playing that deck? And I was like, that is a good question. Why am I not playing that deck? So that has been my best performing deck. I actually got myself back into top 1K with it and then dropped a little bit with other things, but turns out it's just a lot of damage with the Tripwire Hunter. I had played a little bit with the Contraband, which did feel a bit better if you ran into priests, which I have been running into a surprising number of control priests. There's one person in particular who plays at the same hours as I do in NA, whose username is Bonnie Dinkus, who's been on control priest. I keep running into them, and I keep losing, but I'm glad they're living their best life.
Is it control priest or are they a deviant who's playing as Alina?
It is control priest. It is proper control priest.
All right, respect. Okay.
Yeah, and at what I don't remember if this was them or someone else because I've run into a couple different people with it. I had a moment where I was on the Hunter. I did not have the Contraband because mostly the Contraband didn't feel as good in the more common matchups I was seeing, and I just wanted to play it aggressively, get a big board, get my Confront the Tollbearers, get my Tripwires, and I was playing against someone on Control Priest, and I got them down to like 3, and then they cleared my board, stabilized. I had already used my Confront the Tolviers, right? And they said, well played. And I was like, don't say well played before you actually won. And then I stopped and thought, okay, this is what Wicked means when he says, I don't know why people don't concede. Because this is the turn where they won. But that only made me more annoyed, I have to say, to realize that they were in fact right and I should concede right now. And ultimately, I did. But it was like, you may be right, but you are an a-hole.
Them, not me,
for
I
pointing
hope.
it out.
But yeah.
not you specifically, Wicked. You did not do this. It was someone else. Although you've been playing up at similar ranks, so I think it's only because we play at different times that I haven't run into you.
Yeah. Also, I probably was trying to dodge you a little bit, but like, I can see where you are when I'm remembering, and I can, not queue when you're queuing. But I did play a bunch of the Void DH. I climbed up a fair amount. I mean, I had like a 67% win rate with it, except that I got to the point where I was just seeing a lot of mirrors, and I was also I wasn't enjoying it. It was both that I wasn't really enjoying it, and that I was seeing a lot of mirrors. And the things that I was seeing that weren't mirrors were very annoying. And I was getting tired of getting cult neophyted. And I decided to do something that was very out of character for me, which is to play the rogue deck. But this is the rare rogue deck that is both not random BS Go and actually, well, okay, there's some BS, but it's not complete BS. It's not as much as it normally. That's not its entire identity, right?
Audio only listeners, I made a face.
It's less of its entire identity than like I'm going to just play 30 cards and say generate a card from another class on it, right?
Yes, but also the rogue imbue is such that like you don't need much else in the way of generation for there to just be like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but that's kind of feast or famine too. Like that's, it's not completely, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to run all of the imbues and, it's running 4, right? Just the ones that cost 2 because like, and we're going to talk about this in Decksplanations because we're not talking about the Demon Hunter for reasons that we'll get into. But I also do appreciate that the mana curve looks like it's giving you the middle finger when you're looking at it on HS Replay because it's just a couple of zeros, a couple ones, and then a big middle finger of 2s, and then a little bit of 3s. So I climbed up a fair amount. I found a deck that I got a decent win streak at, and I got myself up to about 800, which is Icarus flying way too close to the sun for me. And as a result, I have been camping since Monday. Because I got myself up to like 800. I've decayed down to like 900, but it's like it has been a hot minute since I've been in 11X, and I could feel the wheels just about to fall off, especially as this was getting into the work week when I definitely play considerably worse than I do on the weekend just because I'm tired after the work day's over. I decided to camp. I did play a little bit of Arena today, and that was a bit of an adventure. I had a 20-minute game as a mage who was offered what the hell is the name of the spell now? I forgot. I've already blocked it out.
Infinitize the Maxitude.
Thank you. That one. Yeah. And I ended up against a priest who had copied that and was going to extreme lengths to cast it every single turn to the point where they were drawing when they had no cards left in deck. I was just kind of going back and forth and just kind of keeping them in check. They didn't have a win con. They were basically, I think they were just trying to find burn. I don't know what they were doing, but they drew out their deck, and then I was able to play. There's like the 5-mana minion who discovers a spell that costs 5 or more and casts it twice. So I picked Anomalize because that's just board in a box, and it gave me Safety Dummy, whichever one it was that shuffles 3 bombs into their deck, and that was a 1/1, so that was very easy to kill off. And then they just had 15 damage worth of bombs in, and then I found a burn spell to finish it. But that was after a lot of back and forth. And I was going into full control mode, like, we're going to fatigue. I know not to draw because I know where this is. I know I've seen this movie and I know how it ends. And they were not being nearly as careful. The Anomalize sped things up, but The rest of the run didn't go that well. I only got 4 wins, but I guess 4 wins in Underground Arena is pretty good. I think that might be my best run, to be honest, but I don't play a lot of Arena anyway. So
yeah. And for context to listeners who forgot what Infinitize the Maxitude does, it's a 2-mana spell that says discover a spell, reduce its cost by 1, and finale, return this to your hand at end of turn. So you're getting a spell every turn.
Right.
And so are they.
That was a case of it was not good until they added the 1 mana discount. And even then, it was just, that made it playable.
And there were a couple times, on that Discover, it casts twice. I got whatever the spell is that does 2 damage to the board and then summons the skeletons that do 2 random damage.
Yes.
So cast that twice. The first round of skeletons all die, do damage, and then summon more skeletons. And yeah, it's gross.
Yeah. The skeleton mage, that was fun.
I miss the skeleton mage. That was a very cool mage.
Yeah.
I do have an extra note though on your 2x2 rogue not having a lot of generation, which is one of the core power cards is generation in Jade Guardians, right? Like
listen,
what 8 drops you get matters a lot.
Listen,
yes.
Compared to what Rogue has been for like the past 2 or 3 years, this is light on generation compared to what it has been.
I know, you don't have the big Sinestra turns, right? But still,
it's a fairly limited pool of 8 drops. I mean, there's variance there, but it is roughly what you're gonna get.
Like if you get Willow, that's very different than if you get a very well-timed Illidari Inquisitor or an extremely well-timed Draco Rex that I got earlier today, which won me the mirror handily because they had decided to go for board and had definitely won board. But I got my Jade Guardians first, and I got Draco Rex, and that was game, essentially. So it does matter, but it is almost always good. And if you can do it multiple times, which is what you're trying to do, then it's a power play for sure.
Or sometimes you get an Ursol, and the most expensive spell in your hand is Jade Guardians, and then you get Jade Guardians for the next 3 turns.
Yeah. And sometimes, I actually did do that once, and that was gross. Sometimes you get a very important thing off of the few heralds that you do have, or off of your imbue. I was facing a paladin and got Ravaging Ghoul. That's a whirlwind effect.
That's pretty good.
And then just held on to it until the moment that would most break their spirit. I mean, by which I mean, the most strategically advantaged. That was actually a case of Cult Neophyte being amazing because I could tell exactly when they had their Shatter card combined and wanted to play it.
Sure.
And I would be like, nope, you have to wait a turn, and waiting a turn in Maiev Aggro Paladin is not good because you don't want there to be very many turns if you're playing Maiev Aggro Paladin. So,
What about you, Edel?
I went and visited my grandmother with my daughter. I don't know. I've been in kind of a haze, just kind of going from one thing to the next. Played a little bit of the 2 rogue. Yeah, it's good. Seems solid. I'm just deeply baffled by the Demon Hunter buff, as I think we expressed last episode. Just adding that many extra instances to the deck when other changes were already happening that to me seemed were going to make the meta more favorable. I don't know. I don't understand.
It does feel kind of like when they buffed New Edwin a couple years ago.
It does, yeah.
When they really didn't have to, or they didn't have to buff it as much. Then they buff it by 2 or something. Like they did something stupid to it. I don't remember. I've blocked out that memory, but I remember it being bad. And then that was all that there was at that point. And that was as the rogue was getting good, they buffed the Edwin. So they if they'd waited another couple, which is why they have a little bit longer of a window now for the first balance patch, because they want to give it more time for some of those things to develop. But yeah, it's interesting. And I guess that's kind of leading us into news. So we may as well, before we do the thing that we always do, which is step on the news in Life and Ladder, I guess we should probably get into the news and talk about that.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right. So let's start with the elephant in the room. There was an announcement on social yesterday by the main Hearthstone account. Hey all, as promised, we have been monitoring Void Soul Demon Hunter and can confirm we are making a change in the upcoming 36.2 patch on August 4th. Please keep sharing your feedback with us and stay tuned. And then the Void Demon is emoting WoW, as I'm sure most of the Demon Hunters are also emoting WoW when they are winning the deck. So that is the main reason that we are not going to be doing a deck guide on Void Soul Demon Hunter today, because by the time that we release the episode, that deck will not be what it was, and we don't necessarily know how it's going to change and if it's going to play differently. So we're just going to sidestep that for right now. And if it's still good, we'll talk about it in a couple weeks after it settles in. But yeah, it is kind of surprising that we gave it this many buffs all at once without kind of taking a couple measures and then seeing how we get there. Because I mean, it was not in a good spot, but it also wasn't like embarrassing.
Right.
Well,
it's kind of embarrassing.
It was pretty embarrassing. Yeah. But I mean, I think this shows like they did need to have things hit from the buffs. I think it's easy to say from hindsight that this was rather a lot to add, but they did need to have things hit. I think it just really shows that it's not, in my opinion, it's not so much that like nerfs are the best or buffs are the best, as you kind of have to, it's card by card and case by case, and you kind of have to get the details right, and that is much easier said than done, right?
I guess to me, looking at the kind of mechanic this is, and I played some before the changes, and I was coming up on a pretty decent list that I was like, oh, okay, I feel like, with a little nudge upward and with the rest of the meta getting nerfed a bit, this feels like it's almost there.
Maybe I was unfair in my assessment of it. I think people had mostly just kind of dismissed it when, as embarrassing when maybe it was not actually that far down. Yeah.
And we were also having to play the Fell Hunter then. Right. And that version of the list was not nearly as good when you had to play the Fell Hunter and then you could just like hex it and go on your way. And also was up against a whole bunch of shamans that were running hex for other reasons. Right. So if they just hexed, either the 3/4 or the Fell Hunter, then you just stopped doing anything and it didn't matter. Now it's too far in the other direction.
So what I was doing was I was running Smuggler, right? Defy a Smuggler, which you can use to give the Fell Hunter rush. And that helps significantly, right? Because then you can make sure to kill off your Darkscale, kill off your Fell Hunter, whichever one you need. And, it also meant that in a pinch you could give one of the demons you summon rush or something. And yeah, it was feeling like it was getting to a decent place that the things just needed to slow down a touch. But then, yeah, when you're adding, I mean, just looking at the numbers, right? If you got the Fell Hunter off, it could feel pretty overwhelming, right? But that takes time. Adding an extra, like a durability to the weapon is 2 more souls. A battle cry to the Darkscale is another 2 souls, right? Like it just was a lot to add. And it's that much faster that you get to like the big numbers. It's not even like people get to 10 that regularly, right? It's just you have that turn where you're getting like 4, 5, 6 or something like that, or like you get up to 8 and you hit the Inquisitor because that pool's not that big. And it does feel like, yeah, maybe you'll low roll some in there, but you're generally not going to low roll like all of them going up the chain. And so like, yeah, maybe they hit the mediocre 2s or 3s and then they Doomguard you, or then they get Inquisitor out of nowhere. And so, yeah, I definitely was surprised to see the battle cry and the weapon. To me, I'm just like, pick one, and the weapon is also more damage, right? That's the other thing. So it's 2 more Void Souls and 6 more damage in the deck. And then Trastath, I was just like, okay, is this Trastath felt fine.
Although Trastath is not in a lot of the lists now, but I guess that means it doesn't matter either way.
But that's kind of the point, right? Is that you don't need it because you get to the big demons so fast that it's almost like slowing it down. And like, I mean, and this is like, again, I work not in game development. I work in, in tech elsewhere. And like, generally, the way I approach things is like if something's not working or you're trying to optimize something, like change one thing at a time and then see what the effect is and see if you need to do more. I know that they don't really have the luxury of time with these because all these balance patches are minimum a month apart for the most part, unless there's like an emergency that they need to address like this one. But it still seemed like, okay, if we want this to hit, I guess they only have 2 months for it to hit and the balance patches in the middle and they just needed to do that. But that seems to be a problem with the balance patch cadence more than anything else, that the balance patch is kind of making them take these big swings because they only really get one shot at it, even though it's a shorter cadence than it used to be, which maybe that needs to change also. I don't know. But again, that's easier said than done. We're dealing with like an ancient code base and everything else. But I hope that there's, a good retrospective around this one to kind of see how we can get this back. Because like this, we did get a new deck up at the top, but the problem is that we still had a meta that was dominated by one deck and then a handful of others that were viable, and then everything else was kind of pushed out. And it's not good if we're just rotating whatever the top dog is and then there's a couple of other choices and most of the other decks aren't viable. That's not better. It's just different.
I mean, yeah, and that goes back again to when we're asking for changes from the balance team, because a lot of what was being said was we need big, bold buffs. And I think we did need big, bold buffs, but we need the right big, bold buffs. And again, and I'm not going to pretend that I would have known exactly what the right big, bold buffs are. And maybe it shows that, again, buffs are not always like, I do think that we needed buffs. I'm glad that we had buffs. But like, just buff things boldly, that has caveats and asterisks on it too.
I would have liked to see Mage get something.
I would have liked to see Azalina not get 40 health. That would have been lovely. Because that is just as miserable playing against it as I thought it was going to be. So
You've played against it.
Oh yeah. I was seeing it at like 1,000 legend and I was very confused.
Wow.
Like multiple times I saw it and it was just like, and I generally won those games, but it took forever. It didn't really change the outcome most of the time, but it just changed how long those games took for not much reason. So.
According to VS today, a sort of control Azalina is not good, but is the highest win rate priest.
Wait, over
Right.
Soothsayer? That's wild to me.
Oh, Soothsayer's the meta just killed Soothsayer. Like DH is terrible.
Sure, because
Hunter is terrible. We actually didn't mind all the rogues. The lack of Hex from Mug Shaman was helpful, but like the DHs are really rough, I think. So it might also be that there just isn't enough data anymore for Soothsayer. I'm on Mac, so I can't get the plugin that allows VS to get my data. And I was like the one person playing it. So I think, yeah, either there isn't enough data or it was just killed by the meta. I know I felt like at least right after I couldn't play it. Maybe I could now if once DH prevalence goes down a bit. But yeah, it felt pretty rough. But it might just partly be that there just isn't enough data on it. And if we get a play rate and or win rate hit to Demon Hunter, then that might affect how it feels.
Diamond through Legend, Soothsayer Priest is 39.5% into Demon Hunter over about 4,400 games. And there was also a big resurgence of Warlock, at least at the beginning. And it's even worse in the Warlock. And it's 33% into Warlock. That's a miserable matchup.
It's miserable, and I'm almost surprised it's as high as 33%, because like they curse chains you and you're done.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
is somewhat less Warlock right now than there was right after the patch, but yeah, Warlock was bad, DH was bad, so the meta just shifted such that it wasn't viable, which is the main reason that I dropped down first, because I was playing Soothsayer Priest stubbornly when I shouldn't have been, because just the meta makeup was no longer positive for it. So that's another thing where like it's hard. You buff Demon Hunter and that becomes viable, which is great, but then Soothsayer Priest was on the edge, so if other things slowed down but the meta makeup had stayed the same, then Soothsayer would have suddenly been good, but because of Demon Hunter it's suddenly not good. Like it is a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah. I mean, final design is hard. I don't want to pretend that it's not,
Yeah.
right? Like it is very hard to, and even when you end up with a balanced meta, you don't necessarily end up with a fun meta. So like those two things can sometimes be in conflict, but it's difficult when we have these two metas back to back. And the fix to one is, getting us back to where we started from, just with a different class at the top. And it's a challenge to get 11 classes all in sync. So at least like most of them have something to do, right? I don't think you can ever expect that every class is going to be viable in every meta, but certainly like the goal is that most of them are, and that hasn't been the case for at least a couple of metas now. So hopefully this will get this back in line and we'll get another balance patch after, or we'll get the mini set. Well, the mini set's going to be coming in about a month too, and we'll see what that has in store for us. So anyhow, that's a long-winded way to say we will not be talking about how to play Demon Hunter in Decksplanations today. But we did mention patch 36.2, which means that we are getting a new Battlegrounds season. And this season is going to be introducing dark gifts into Battlegrounds. So there's going to be a button on the side, kind of where the opponent's deck would be in Constructed, above the recruit and battle and combat button. That's the end turn button in Constructed, where you can, starting on turn 3, you could spend 3 gold and discover a minion with a dark gift. It works similarly to how it does in Constructed, where there's still minions that exist, but with additional buffs. The buffs are obviously different than they are in Constructed, but they'll be more Battlegrounds appropriate. And you can do that once a turn 3 times per game. So when you decide to go for a dark gift and which one you choose will affect how your strategy goes throughout the game, which is a pretty cool way to do it. And the 3 gold is the 3 gold that you would spend in buying a minion out of the shop. So you just get to pick one of 3 and then start building around that. Trinkets will also be live for this season again. So there will be both trinkets and this dark gift mechanic both at the same time. There will be a couple new heroes, Nightmare Lord Xavius, who will let you, every 4 turns, you'll get to discover a minion with a dark gift. And Trasdath, Soul Parasite, which will, at the start of the game, you'll discover a tier 5 minion with a dark gift, and it unlocks on turn 7. So, another one of those that you pick something and then you get a big boost a little bit later into the game. There's a new keyword called Activate, which is some of the minions will glow, and then you can trigger that ability during the recruit phase by spending gold on that minion's ability. So it's kind of like an activated ability sort of thing, which I guess is why it's called Activate. That makes sense. I'm very smart. And you can only activate once per turn. So, however you decide to use that will kind of affect how the rest of your turn goes. But you'll have something else to be able to spend your gold on now instead of just spells and buying things from the shop. So some of the examples they have: Activate to trigger a friendly minion's battle cry, Activate to gain 2 gold next turn, Activate your demons each consume a random minion in the tavern to gain its stats, that sort of a thing. They've refreshed the minion pool. There's a new pirate synergy called Lockbox, which effectively puts a minion in jail for a number of turns, unless there are ways to break it out early, which I'm sure that there are, because they wouldn't have said that if that wasn't the case. And it's always going to be golden, so you'll always get to be able to discover from the next tier as well. And then Fishbait is a beast synergy that allow your minions to attack during the recruit phase. And then, so the minions that attack that, then they get to eat the fish bait and they get a buff out of it. So I guess it looks like the base is like Death Rattle, give the minion that killed it +5/+5, or Golden, give the minion that killed it +10/+10. And you'll have some other ways to generate fish bait and then take advantage of it. There's new tavern spells. We said trinkets are coming back. Venomous is getting a change where it used to get consumed after it dealt damage to the first minion. So the difference between venomous and poisonous, like the poisonous and constructed is always a thing on it. Venomous, it gets used up after the first time that it kills something. That is changing to be the first minion that it kills per turn, so that the venomous is going to refresh the beginning of combat. So it won't be, sometimes some of those minions would be kind of like, well, now I have a vanilla minion that I don't care about. After it's used up the venomous, now it'll be refreshing at the beginning of combat, and it'll still get used up within that combat. And then
I think this is also because of the fish bait. If you use it up
yes,
during the fish bait, then you wouldn't have it in the combat in that turn. So if it just refreshed once per turn, you could still not have it during combat because of the fish bait thing. So now it'll be, even if you had the venomous minion attack the fish bait, it'll still be venomous in the combat that turn.
yes, yep. And then Chroma Drakes are no longer in the tavern pool, but you can still generate them. They've been updated to show that they can only be generated through effects. And also the easy to read stats that we talked about in the dev video last week, those are going to be live with the new patch, where it's going to take anything that's more than 4 digits, will shorten it to 1K. Presumably, if you get it big enough, it'll start to do scientific notation like in Balatro, and let us know if that happens to you. I'm making that up. I don't know if it actually does that, but it would be very cool if it did. And so that will be live on Tuesday. There's an early access event, I believe tomorrow is Fridays. We're recording this. So if you're watching live, you can go tune into folks who are going to be doing a theory crafting-esque event, but with Battlegrounds. So you can watch that. And there's also drops to get additional Battlegrounds refresh tokens and things of that nature. So that is that's what else is going to be in that patch, along with the one constructed change that we know about. I would not expect many other balance changes in that patch. Usually they try not to do balance patches for constructed in content patches like Battlegrounds, but this is a unique situation where they need to do something. They don't want to wait another 2 weeks for the first Battlegrounds balance patch. So that's why they're doing it. This is something they do not commonly, but occasionally. And finally, one reminder, if you are watching us live or you're listening on the raw audio, that the Masters Tour Summer Championship is this weekend. Our own Edelweiss will be casting as usual. It will be going Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I believe. That's right? We're doing all 3 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have the lineups?
Oh, do we? Yep.
Yeah, we sure do. And they are...
very, very green.
Yeah. Very green, very gray. It's a very... stripes are back in season. And yeah, every single person brought Void Soul DH. Every single person brought 2 Rogue. And then there's the 3rd and 4th decks are a mix of Base Hunter with or without Contraband. There's about 6 Quest Mages. There's a fair number of Mug Shamans, 1 Z Shaman, and 1 Dragon Warrior, and that is it.
There's 3 Soothsayer Priests.
Oh, 3 Soothsayer Priests as well. Yes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes, 7 classes represented out of 11, which is kind of what you would expect given what the ladder meta has been. There's 3.5 decks, and that's enough for a lineup. And there's a little bit of disagreement about what the 4th deck is, which is kind of shown in these lineups, but otherwise it's pretty much what you would expect to see.
Yep. I mean, look, it'll still be good to watch because they're very good players, but it's going to be a lot of the same decks.
Well, they'll probably ban the Demon Hunter at least, so you'll get some other things to see there. But yeah.
Yeah, even so, I mean, this is tough. Like, I'm gonna be excited for Quest Mage breaking things up. That's not a position I want to be in.
Well, we know you're not going to be rooting for the Soothsayer Priest because that's going to make your matches take twice as long. So
yeah, except twice as long is still not going to be that long, right? Like as long as it's not a Soothsayer Priest mirror, you're just trying to outlast an aggro deck. So,
and we only have 1 Soothsayer Priest in each group, so you won't get a mirror until Sunday at the worst.
Right.
So maybe and hopefully they'll take care of each other so you don't have to deal with that. Because that would be kind of like a record scratch, given the rest of these matchups. Like, oh yeah, we're going through 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, blazing through. Oh, here's the Priest Mirror. Okay, everybody settle in, get your snacks. Gives everybody else a chance to catch up and wake up ahead of time. But yeah. Anyhow, as long as you're watching, it still counts towards whatever metrics that they're getting, which means that they keep giving us esports, which we like because that gives us things to talk about, especially when the meta is slightly more interesting than the one we have right now.
Yeah. And this is I think the last opportunity, unless I'm unaware of a last call that I forgot about. I believe this is the final opportunity for folks to qualify to Worlds outside of points stuff. So yeah, kind of exciting to watch the race in that sense. And then, I get like a month break and then Worlds at BlizzCon, which is kind of wild to think about.
I guess it does make sense that there wouldn't necessarily be much more in between, because if they're having to arrange travel to BlizzCon, that's going to take time. They don't want to be doing that all last minute if they have like a last call in the middle of August or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. Especially with visas involved.
Well, gosh, yeah. Visas to the U.S. Good. GLHF. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, on that happy note, why don't we? I say this not less resentfully than I normally would. Let's talk about Rogue and Decksplanations.
Well, I want to make it very clear to the listeners that we are talking about Rogue because of Wicked, which is not a common occurrence. So, and he is actually, I think, our most experienced pilot of this deck among the three of us as well.
This may never happen again.
You were here, listener, to witness this history. This would be like if I was leading the Death Knight conversation.
Blood Death Knight specifically.
Specifically Blood Death Knight. I mean, I have less than 200 wins on Death Knight as an entire class. And those are probably 95% unholy. I guess there was a little bit of a Friend Frost DK like at the very beginning. So it's like 80% unholy, 18% Frost, and 2% Blood probably, which is like 2 games because 3 games maybe because I have less than 200 wins. That's how math works. So anyway, but 2-bit Rogue. What are we doing here? How has this changed? We still have, and this shows Wicked was right last week. We had a bit of a disagreement on like, are we going for Lotus Troublemaker? Are we going for Twilight Mistress? You can do a slower sort of Herald Rogue, but the better way to go, win rate rise, does seem to be, and the one that we're talking about today, the Lotus Troublemaker deck. And that is still good, and you can still play Lotus Troublemaker. So credit where credit is due on that one. We have cut Vanessa entirely. The curve tops out at Garona. Everything else is 3 or less. Almost everything, as Wicked was alluding to earlier, is 2 drops. Right, except for really your Lotus Troublemakers, your Jade Guardian, Garona, 1 Rust-Rot Viper, which might or might not go away after changes, and Lane, but Lane is not actually in your deck, so that doesn't matter.
And Rust-Rot Viper is kind of the 30th card. You can run, so if you're seeing more of the mirror, you can run Deja Vu in that slot because that gives you an extra Jade Guardians a lot of the time. The list that I was playing most of the time had Picklock in that spot. Don't do that. It's fine. It's more awkward than you would think, and it's not. It's fine, but it's not all that good. But it sometimes costs 2, and sometimes you just need to be able to get rid of a big thing and it lets you do it. But Viper or Deja Vu is probably better, all things considered. And the latest list from Vicious Syndicate does add Word of Maiev in there as a 2-drop, but generally what you're trying to do is rush get Jade Guardians, which is why everything costs 2, less for Troublemaker and more for Jade Guardians, because even before the Troublemaker rework, Jade Guardians was almost like Troublemaker was the card you would lose to. Jade Guardians was the card that got you there a lot of the time. And Jade Guardians is still one of the strongest card in the deck. You can mulligan incredibly aggressively in this deck because you know you're always going to have a playable hand. Like everything costs 2 except for the cards that you're actually trying to mulligan for, which are really Jade Guardians, Shadow of Demise to get more Jade Guardians. And it failing that, Kingslayers to draw Jade Guardians. to draw a Shadow of Demise to get more Jade Guardians.
And if you are running the VS list, Maiev is a huge mulligan outlier.
Yes. Yeah. But ultimately, like you can do that because you know you're going to have plays on 2 because everything else costs 2. So you're basically just trying to line up your plays such that you are just playing as many cards that cost 2 as quickly as possible, getting Jade Guardians ideally with Shadow of Demise in hand to be able to get the 8 drops down as soon as possible before your opponent's able to deal with them, and ideally getting as many of them as possible out as early as possible. The 8 drop pool, as we alluded to earlier, is incredibly good. Not all of them will win you the game on the spot, but and I mean most of them won't, but they're still generally very good and they're very hard to deal with, especially when you're talking about the Void Soul DH doesn't have a lot of ways to be able to deal with a big minion until they've beefed up their own Void Souls, and that takes them a little bit longer than you're able to get Jade Guardians out. So and against the hunters, you're kind of trying to survive and you have plenty of tools to do that because like you have a lot of little minions that'll trade. You have damage that you can get in the form of Rite of Twilight and in the form of Eventuality. You can use the odd mana that's left over on your turns to be able to play it, to use the 1 mana imbue hero power to be able to find other things to do. And you can kind of just stay even on board until you can allow the Jade Guardians to come out and then be able to take over the game. And Hunter is not equipped to remove things. It wants to remove your face. So if you can get big things that they can't remove, then you just get to beat them up and flip the table. And then the game pretty much ends at that point.
Yeah, other thing about Hunter is that the arcane tripwires care about your minions' health too. So, and in the mirror, if they are having to rely on troublemakers, you essentially have more health against those if you have more minions on board. And also just like having your 8 drops before they have their 8 drops is generally game winning. Sometimes the troublemakers can, check. You can get lethal out of nowhere, like check for lethal. The card itself says how much damage it's going to do. You don't even have to times it by 2 anymore, right? And worry about like, oh, it hits an odd health thing, so I lose a damage. Like it is how much damage it says is convenient, and you don't need to have a deck tracker for that. So check for lethal. I'm saying this because I missed lethal earlier today. But then I also later got a good lethal out of nowhere with both troublemakers. But really, yeah, it is a Jade Guardian deck. You have some whiffs, like Willow or Togwaggle, although one of my games against Bonnie Dinkus, I
Poor Bonnie Dinkus has just become like your nemesis accidentally.
Yeah, I don't know whether they're even aware of the show, but if you are and if you're listening, good on you. They had a game where they were clearly going to win, but I had a chance at swinging it back because of my Togwaggle. Now, I didn't play everything that was good out of my hand before playing Togwaggle. That was my problem. But I got their, Firebolt.
Eternal Firebolt?
Yeah, that was very important. I did not, unfortunately, get their Medivh. That would have potentially been game-winning. But I got a lot of their, stall and healing, and I had been able to generate things from Imbue, like the Priest Dragon that steals a minion with its health or less, and I got their 5/10 taunt with Death Rattle that they had gotten out of the location, and I stole that. So now I had the taunt that spawned a taunt. I can't remember the name of anything right now. I'm sorry.
Atlasaur, is that?
Atlasaurus. Yes. Yeah. I stole their Atlasaurus, which they weren't hard running that, to be clear, but they had gotten it out of the 10-mana location. So that was really funny because it was a Togwaggle that actually helped me out because I had a bunch of 2-cost stuff that wasn't anymore that useful at this point in the game because it had gone late. And I got all their stuff that is useful for the late game. So that was entertaining, but did not ultimately save me. But usually Togwaggle is not a good hit. However, there are lots of good 8-drops, as we have talked about many times in other situations. It's a very good pool. Yeah, just being able to get those down as soon as possible is often what wins you the game. You can also just have an aggressive early board. If you stick a Maiev, then sometimes that just wins. Neophyte can help you either bridge to the Jade Guardians or just help you get that early board because it makes it harder for them to respond or them to build their own board back. It's even effective against like hunters. Hunters have a lot of 1-mana spells also.
Confront the Tol'vir, they want to play it on 5, right? So yeah.
It turns out when you play the hunter, it does matter that it's 5 mana. It is still a nuts card, but it does matter. When it costs 6, you're like, ugh, that can be rough. So like if you play it on right before their 5 mana turn, that can potentially mess them up. Or if they wanted to play more 1-mana spells to get into it, now those are twice as expensive. So that Cult Neophyte can slow down a lot of decks. It can also slow down the mirror a little bit. They're not going to be able to, but less so because the mirror is mostly minions, but there is still a number of like
there's a fair
spells.
number of spells. It can mess you up pretty bad because I mean there's a number of spells that you still want to play. I mean Cultist Map, Eventuality, Rite of Twilight, those are all Fan of Knives. Like those are still like cards out of your deck that effectively get turned off. And also if you want to use the coin to be able to get a couple of 2s on an odd mana turn, you want to use the coin to be able to get an extra 2 on an odd mana turn. You can't do that if you're Cult Neophyted. So that can slow you down a little bit as well. But the fact that it makes it all cost 3 is not only worse because it costs more, but also because it doesn't tick up your Jade Guardians.
Right.
And that's another reason that you want to play it in the mirror to slow down their progression toward. It's almost like a quest deck in some ways. Like it's slowing down their quest to some extent.
It is kind of funny how like the change to Troublemaker, definitely good change. We don't like the spikes. We don't like the damage going that high. But it makes the mulligan so much easier because you never have to hold on to this 3-cost card that like you didn't really want until much, much later anyway. And so now instead you get to just sort of like not really want to draw it until, you know, it's going to deal 15 or whatever anyway.
Yeah. And also like cutting Vanessa means that you have a lot fewer cards between you and Shadow of Demise. And that's so like Garona is there. She comes with the weapon, basically. Like it doesn't like if you think you can time it and you can and you can get it down to get King Lane out of their hand, like absolutely do it. But that is you don't generally need to, and it's not a big deal if you whiff. Because Garona is really just there to get you the weapon, and the weapon is there to get you Shadow of Demise so that you have it when you play Jade Guardians. That is the goal. Adding Maiev makes it so that you sometimes can whiff on both swings, but that's still you still have a 66% chance to hit it.
Well, this also has Thalnos, this particular list.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Because it is really good with the AoE. And that helps in the mirror too, because a lot of these things have 2 health or against Hunter. So it probably is worth, and it does draw you a card, but it can make it a little harder to find Shadow of Demise. I think one question that's worth addressing is, do you wait for Shadow of Demise? I would guess you probably do not, unless maybe it's your second copy and you're facing something slow.
I think if you're up against like a priest, maybe you have to, right? Because you may need that amount of value. If you're against any of like the decks you expect to see, Hunter, the Mirror, Demon Hunter, just rip it. It is nice to have the second one, but it is just getting that value down can sometimes make the difference. One other point, you want to prep the real Jade Guardians, not the Shadow of Demise copy. This is a thing that is very easy to mistake because it looks almost like the real thing. And then, I'll just prep out the second one. No, you won't. You will just have a prep and you'll be sad. So don't do that. That's just something that's worth mentioning because it's a very easy mistake to make. Even when you know that it's a mistake that you shouldn't make, it's still a very easy mistake to make because you're just, I'll just prep that out. It's fine. No, you won't.
Yep. A new type of concede, the Guardians prep concede.
Our spin-off podcast.
Our Destiny 2 our ill-fated Destiny 2 podcast, yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't even necessarily look at Kingslayers as a Shadow of Demise tutor. Like, that's all well and good. But it's just, at this point, I think we happen to be in a moment where the downside is not as bad as it once was, right? Drawing other people legendaries. Like the fact that we don't care about Vanessa means our opponents don't either. And then it's just a fiery war axe that draws you 2 cards, right? Like, and the deck actually doesn't have a ton of card draw, so sometimes you need it.
Yeah, which is maybe not a bad thing for Thalnos as well, right? I will say one thing for Kingslayers. If your DH opponent is Turboing Broxigar, be a little wary because I think most of the time you don't have to, don't never play it against a Demon Hunter. Like, you can play it against that, but they had gotten the first portal and the weapon that draws portals early. So then I was just drawing them portals. I was like, don't just keep drawing them portals.
They do have Xavius and Kane usually, so there are other things that you can hit. But yeah, it's also Kane is not necessarily the thing that you want to see when you're playing big taunts out of Jade Guardians anyway. So that can be a little bit of a bummer. And you do have to be aware that you are probably giving your hunter opponent Sylvanas Sisters when you are playing the Kingslayer, and you just need to be prepared for that. Again, it is not a reason not to do it, but just be aware that that is damage that you need to be aware of how many Sylvanas they've played, or how many Windrunners they've played, I guess is the more accurate way to say that. And are you prepared for a 4 or 6 damage AoE if you have just given that to them? Because that can also come back to bite you if you're not careful.
Okay, so this is very interesting. Is this the archetype card stats? Yeah, let me get to the mulligan stats for the archetype so that we have a higher percentage here. Warden Maiev has the highest mulligan rate, then Jade Guardians. Okay, Kingslayer is positive, because I was for that deck specifically, the Kingslayer's mulligan win rate was really low, and I was like, what is this? Are we wrong about everything? But no, it was just small sample size. Okay, with a larger sample size, Kingslayer's is a positive win rate card. Somehow there was a bug where King Lane counted as kept, and so it has the best mulligan impact because in that game the person won, or I don't know. There's like a glitch on HS Guru that shows King Lane as the best mulligan impact card. But obviously that's why you also pay attention to the numbers next to it for the sample size. So yeah, but the main things are Warden Maiev and Jade Guardians.
But it's just worth noting that like there is one card with a significant not drawn impact, and it is Jade Guardians. Like minus 21% win rate when you don't draw Jade Guardians at all. So that is telling you how hard you need to mulligan for that. Also, like cultist map is also something to be thinking about, like when you're doing that, because sometimes if you'll see 3 cards, you want to have one of them is Jade Guardians, you want to play one of the other 2 that you can play in that turn to make sure that you draw the Jade Guardians off of it if you don't already have one. Even if you do already have one, you might want to do that anyway, depending on what your situation is, just to make sure that you're getting that off the second draw, because the way the cultist map works is that it gives you discovers a card. If you play it, you get one of the others. So you want to play the card that you can play that turn, such that you can draw one of the other cards that you're not going to play that turn, or that you would still play after that. But
yeah, and for the cultist map, you can safely play it if you're going to have 2 mana left over after you play it. So you prep it on 2, or you play it on 4, or you play it on 3 with coin, because you are going to find a 2-drop out of it, almost certainly. But yeah, make sure if you can't play anything off of it, then definitely pick the Jade Guardians first, but usually you shouldn't be playing it unless you can play something else, and then you get the Jade Guardians on your second go round, unless it's late in the game and you're just going to play the Jade Guardians right away, I guess, because you haven't been finding it.
Yeah, and prep is almost always for Jade Guardians. You can prep something like a cultist map if you need to, but just be aware that when you prep something, it is no longer cost 2 and it won't advance your pseudo quest. So that's something just to be aware of when you're choosing what you're going to prep out.
There's also some weird things where it's like, is this a bug? Is this not a bug? I don't know. Blastoise is mentioning that map, if you pick the monkey, it will have 1 less. I guess because it's in this weird liminal space when it's being taken off the map.
It's Schrodinger's monkey.
Yeah. And then also, if you've played one of your 2s and then it gets freezing trapped, then it rewinds a tick. because it's not a 2-drop anymore. I don't know. That feels strange.
That feels like a bug. We should check the known issues.
I'll also note if you get Irida off of Imbues, which happened to me, it will be sort of freeze framed at when you, whatever they were at when you sent your deck to the void.
Oh, because it's no longer. That's not a bug. It says
No, I know that's not a bug.
because it says when this is in your hand or deck, so
Right.
it's no longer in your deck at that point, so it can't advance. That is working as designed. It's just weird
until it's in your hand. Still ended up working out fine, but yeah, worth noting.
That is worth noting, especially if you're playing. So my experience against Bonnie Dinkus aside, overall, 2-Bit Rogue has a great win rate against control, such as there is control in this deck. That is partly because just control right now has lower win rate in general. I'm sure that's a big part of it, but like we have a lot of big things and some inevitability in that if you do have to just wait, you can get your Lotus Troublemakers big and then play both of them. So it is a high win rate against control decks in general. Part of the problem in that game where I had to use Togwaggle to try to save myself was that I had miscounted in my hand, and then they got me to draw, and I burned one of the Troublemakers. So I would most likely have won if I had not burned one of the Troublemakers.
It is worth saying, though, like, you don't have to get too greedy with the Troublemakers. Like, sometimes it's fine if you have a fairly clear board on the other side and it's not as pumped up as it could be. Like, it's generally going to be fine just to take the damage, because you do have to keep in mind, like, if you like spend another couple turns getting it pumped up, it's going to do another 3-4 more damage, but then there's going to be bodies in the way, right? So there are times when you can use it early for board control. You don't necessarily need to use it for lethal. Sometimes just getting a couple of pings off of it early and clearing off a board that's in the way is worth. But also, if you have a fairly clear board and it's got a medium amount of damage, it's not enough for lethal, it's still worth doing. And then hopefully you can find the rest of the damage somewhere else rather than waiting another turn. They play a 4-12 and then most of the damage gets soaked and it doesn't matter that you ended up adding a few more points of damage to it.
Yeah, that is a really important point, and that's kind of just a general aggro rule of like, go ahead and put them to 2. You're not a combo deck. You have a lot of damage. You're like a proactive deck. Go ahead and put them to 2. Unless maybe they're like a priest and they're going to heal up incredibly unless you kill them. In general, you can just do the damage. Or if you have to use the Troublemaker to clear, like, that's okay. You can use the Troublemaker to clear versus like a Hunter or sometimes in the mirror. Because we don't have a lot of clear. Like, I think another reason why we're running Thalnos is that, like, Thalnos plus Fan of Knives is, like, our clear, unless you get, like, a Draco Rex off of Jade Guardians, or you get something out of the Herald from your 1 Herald card. Like,
yeah, or Crumble Crusher can get rid of stuff. Oh, also, Disciple of Demise, just be aware that ordering is important. That's the 8-mana 8/8 dragon. It says battle cry, randomly destroy another minion, repeat for each dragon you're holding. That does not care what side of the board that's on. So you generally want to play that before the other thing out of Jade Guardians to make sure that it doesn't accidentally kill the other thing that you just played. It's an easy mistake to make. And also you want to have fewer targets for it on your side of the board, so hopefully you clear away something on their side of the board. But you can shoot yourself in the foot with that dragon if you're not careful.
this will get you familiar with all the 8 drops in the game.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have not seen this card before, take a second, read it. And if you're going to be playing Jade Guardians in your turn, or you're going to be generating other cards, do that early, like we were talking about when we were talking about managing RNG. Jade Guardians, maybe you wait to play it a little later in your turn because you're playing a couple other 2 drops first. Fine. But in general, like, try to do the generation early so that you can properly read the cards, so you can actually play it accurately. And then as you get more practice, there are not so many 8 drops that you won't see them again, and get more of a sense of what am I going to do with each one that comes out here.
Entomologist Toru is also another one just to be aware of, because if you have it depends. It's not as bad as it was in the original version of this list to just summon things, but it's going to So Entomologist Taru is an 8 mana 7/7 that says Battle Cry, put each minion in your hand into 0/1 jars that cost 1, break them to release your minions. If you care about the Battle Cries, say like, I mean, by that point in the game, you probably won't as much, but like there was in the older version, like you could end up putting Vanessa. Well, I guess Vanessa even wouldn't be that bad in that list, but there are some things you might have gotten off of the imbues that have Battle Cries that you might care about.
Or Troublemaker itself, if you're relying on that.
Yeah, like if you have a Troublemaker in your hand and you need the damage from it, then be aware that if you play Entomologist Haru, you're going to take away that damage. You're just going to end up with like a guy on board after you break the jar, which is going to be not great. It might be fine, depending on what else is in your hand. You know, if you just have a bunch of junk that you've accumulated from the imbue and you just care about getting a bunch of bodies on board, that might be fine, but just look at your hand before you play it. Because if you just play that like without looking, then you could end up putting a monkey wrench in your game plan and having to work around that.
See, I find the junk hands are great for when you togwaggle. Make the most out of a togwaggle. Oh, okay. Toru, not so great. All these random legendaries off of, imbues, whatever. Well, we'll just togwaggle and hope they have burn.
Yep. Nope. So maybe this wasn't just that one game where togwaggle worked out. The imbue can also be a great thing to do with your like odd mana, because everything costs 2, so you don't often, you don't always spend your odd mana. So having that hero power is helpful for that, and sometimes you'll get something that just happens to be perfect, like the Ravaging Ghoul.
This is like even Quest Rogue.
Kinda, yeah.
You have a 1 mana hero power. Everything costs an even amount of mana, except for a couple things that don't. And you need to hero power with the odd mana to be able to make up for the fact that everything's even. Yeah. And then the even stuff advances your quest.
That is exactly what it feels like. So many games, I'm like, okay, we imbue, we want to imbue on 2 or 3 so that we can start spending that 1 mana left over on imbues.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like if you're trying to decide which of these 2-drops do I play first, I've been finding I'll like coin a 2-drop that imbues. By turn 3, I've played 1 imbue so that my 3rd mana on 3 is an imbue. That gets a little bit more out faster than holding the coin for turn 2, but you might want to do that in certain situations.
Yeah, or you Lotus Bookie, and then you play Lotus Bookie on 2, trade it off on 3, and then coin out 2 drops on turn 3. That's the other pattern.
Yeah, Lotus Bookie is a good thing to play on turn 1 or 2 so that you have that ready for turn 3 to get a couple things out. Because this is a place where you want kind of maximum tempo in the early.
Yeah, I find myself preferring to be on coin because otherwise you skip 1. And so if you're on coin, you can actually, get stuff out there and then continue your curve in kind of a normal way, whereas otherwise you always are skipping turn 1.
So maybe we should swap out the Viper for Aya, and then we'll always be on the coin.
But I don't think it's that necessary. But
we don't have a lot of other coin synergy besides Lotus Bookie. The weapon was in some lists but has been cut, it seems, in the more refined lists. So, but I mean, yeah, we'll see what that Rustvite Viper becomes going forward. Something like Escape Artist also or Maiev are much better earlier. Like if you can play those on 1 or 2, they're much less likely to be answered, and so then you're going to be able to get stuff out of them. I suppose Maiev, if you do draw her later and then you play her with a number of things like an imbue minion or 2 and some 2-drops, then maybe that'll build the big board. But in general, she's much better if you draw her early. And a lot of decks can't quite answer her, or they have to really try to answer her. Like if you coin around on 1 and then they do clear her, it's like, all right.
Then you just start over again. You time walk them in that case. It's fine, right? Like you basically made them spend their entire turn killing your 1/4, and now you just get to do more stuff, and you haven't given up tempo. It's fine, but 4 health is a lot. And it is going to be hard for them to be able to just like incidentally get rid of Maiev. And they're going to want to. It's we learned this with Vanessa, like how hard it is to remove a 4 health minion when you don't want to. when you want to be doing like literally anything else, but it takes actual effort to do it, as opposed to just like a 3 health minion that's generally easier to just blow away.
I had one game where I did, I think, wait one turn to play it because I was on the coin. They had played something that would contest it on one, and I was able to protect it for a few turns. I also got lucky in that my imbues gave me like the 0/1 taunt from Shaman, which like my Ev's great in Z Shaman, by the way, and Z Shaman is fun. Z Shaman's a bit of a sleeper in the format, I think. Maybe less so after VS said that Z Shaman's a sleeper in the format. More people will probably start playing it. That's how that tends to work. But yeah, so like if you can protect her, great. But if you can't, like whatever, she still drew fire. Or even if she only got you like 1 minion dormant, like that is fine. But if she does stick, then the game is just, she'll just run away with the game. Anybody who's faced the Maiev aggro paladin will know that. The thing about the Maiev aggro paladin though is that they don't have a lot of draw, and they don't have any sort of plan B. So you just got to figure out how you're going to survive those first few turns if you can. If they just get the nuts and you don't get the answers, then, you know. But that's like the epitome of the this either works or it doesn't aggro deck, I would say.
Which is every aggro deck in my hands, so. Yeah. And usually it doesn't.
Usually. So, yeah, I mean, I've only played some of the Rogue because I just switched to that today since we decided that we were going to cover it. I've certainly played against it a bunch, but I enjoyed playing it today. I might use that tomorrow, or I might just go back to the Hunter to try to get myself back in top 1K. I'll probably do that, and then try the Rogue out a little bit once it's safely August. We'll see. We'll see whether I get that 11x. But I think this is a Rogue deck that's like not a crazy combo. There is a lot of randomness, but it's not just like, it's not like a long game where you're generating a ton of randomness with Sinestra. I think that might be part of what makes it feel different than the Herald Rogue, is that the games are like shorter. And it is somewhat more predictable, the kind of nonsense you're going to get. Like, you're going to get 8 drops that are big minions that you drop down.
Right. You're not piecing together a game plan as you go, right? Like, you have a fairly defined game plan. It is play 2 drops, get to Jade Guardians. That's the game plan. If the game plan is not, well, I'll generate a bunch of crap and then I'll figure out how to put this all together into something that approximates a game plan later on. And maybe which again is not entirely, I'm being a little bit facetious, but not too much.
There are times where you sort of, you play your Jade Guardians, and if it doesn't get you over the line, you don't have a ton of stuff left, again, because it is a little lighter on draw. So you can find yourself sometimes in positions where you're like, I'm imbuing because I hope I can find stuff. Basically, like if you don't hit your maps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be a situation where you do that. And on the imbue, I don't know if I'm like always doing the correct, when do I rewind, like how greedy do I get with the rewinds? Generally, if it's early in the game and it costs 2 with the discount, I'm just gonna keep it unless it's actively bad for me for some reason. Otherwise, if it's early in the game, I'm like, is this like actively helpful? Then I'll keep it. And then if it's really late in the game and you've run out of gas, then yeah, you're just like rewind if it's not exactly what you need. Or you're a Hail Mary, I need a taunt now, then you rewind if it's not exactly what you need and you play that first. So
the other question you can ask yourself is this funny?
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes games are supposed to be fun, and so you play the funny thing, you emote, and then you concede. That's another new concede that we have.
Or you play the funny thing and you beat them with it, one or the other.
And then you post it to Discord, like, haha, look what happened, guys. So then, take a screenshot. Screenshot or it didn't happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why replays exist.
Oh, well, I was wondering if that's kind of it, because I feel like we sort of covered it.
I think we did. I was just going to say I have so many, like, I was going through my screenshots folder and it was just like 90% Hearthstone, either like decks or game states or my rank, just in case this was the highest rank I was going to get that month, because you never know what, like it creeps up throughout the month, the ranks that I've screenshot. So yeah, I have a bit of a problem with my
That reminds me, I need to clean off my desktop again because they go to my desktop by default, and it's full up covered, and I can't see the trails from the sky box art for all the screenshots, which is a travesty.
Oh no.
So I need to fix that.
Yeah, so you have to fix. See, that's why I have it default to a screenshots folder, because otherwise my desktop would be an absolute nightmare. But I have this weird thing about the desktop where I like don't put anything on it. I like go to extreme lengths to never put anything on the desktop. It goes in downloads, or it goes in a special folder for itself, or it goes directly to where it's supposed to go in my documents tree. I don't know why, because I'm not tidy like that in any other aspect of my life. Certainly not my real desktop. Like my physical desktop is not clear ever, but everyone has their own little quirks, I guess. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Well, yeah, bit of a shorter one, but I think that'll about do it. So, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks. Oh, God. You know, it's that is also too many syllables. Check out our About Us section on the website at Concede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/Concede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.concede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at Coinconcede. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/iCoinconcede. And if you'd like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. So, Coin Concedes.
First, I will do a coin concede to you for trying to get the change on the website name. I will just split the About Us page into hosts and thanks, and then you can say it the normal way again.
just make it true.
Just make it true. It will not take long. I have to make a couple like back end changes to it anyway, so it won't be like an extra update to the repo or anything. So
I mean, I have been doing it for like at least 100 episodes, right?
Probably more even. It's been like 3 years.
God, yeah. It's been a long time. So, yeah. Coin Concedes?
I have to think of a real one now.
Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank this week, but
I will coin concede to Bonnie Dinkus for providing me content and living their best life in top 1K or thereabouts with control priest, like proper control priest, which I am not brave enough to do. So, coin concede to them, whoever they are.
All right. I will coin concede to Wicked for this rogue deck, because I think just today I'm 8-1.
okay, that's good.
So, yeah. Now, admittedly, I'm sure I'm playing against not so good players because I had not hit legend yet. But
okay, well,
Well, it's still your MMR under the hood, but yeah.
yes, but I regularly tank that by playing nonsense. So this is the thing. I feel like I'm often playing against people who sometimes make questionable moves, and it's because it's like, yes, I've been hitting the new decks, the weird decks recently. So this is where I've fallen.
that'll teach you to play Warlock. Yeah.
I feel like if you just like locked in on only playing the best decks, you would have like the highest rank out of the three of us. But then you would be sad.
I would be sad. And I think sort of regardless of playing, I think it would even out, because the times that I've done the best have been the times where I'm like playing something that I actually enjoy. So there really, for me to have a high rank, there has to be that intersection of a good deck that I enjoy. And so one of my highest ranks was Odd Rogue, because I love that deck and it was good.
And now you're liking even rogues, so there you go.
That's honestly, you're not wrong.
Well, I'm gonna coin concede to Falcom because I finished Trails Through Daybreak 1 over this past week, and so now I only have 2 Trails games left between me and finding out another excuse to not play Expedition 33. So,
or Baldur's Gate 3. Come on,
or finish Baldur's Gate. Well, I probably could do that because that's like, I'm playing Trails on my Steam Deck. I probably could just fire up. That's what I should be doing instead of beating my head against arenas. I should be finishing up Baldur's Gate. Is what I should be doing.
Listeners, I am like nearing completion of my third, like beating Baldur's Gate 3. This most recent time on like honor mode plus a mod that like reshuffles and adds all new equipment and also adds an extra difficulty, like just giving bosses 5 extra AC and like a bunch of pluses to their saves and things. Yeah, we'll see how many times can I beat this game before you two
Before I finish
before
it
you
once.
just load up and finish Act 3, right? Like I think
Yeah.
both
It's
of
not.
you
It's
are.
not even like I'm worried about the challenge of it. It's just I have to motivate myself to like load it and like update it,
Uh-huh.
which is probably going to take a whole day at this point.
Yeah, that's actually been because I've gotten a new computer in between, so this doesn't actually have Baldur's Gate on it, and the like download, I'm like avoiding the download. But really, I think it's that Wicked will play anything to avoid Expedition 33 and Baldur's Gate, even Rogue.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
played most of Baldur's Gate. I just haven't finished it. That's the only, because then it would be over.
Yeah, see, it's not. I have to explain this sometimes, like with my ADHD. If I'm not doing a thing, it's not necessarily because I don't want to do the thing, or that think I'm not going to enjoy the thing. I know I will enjoy the thing, and sometimes that's why I'm not doing it, because then nothing else will ever happen.
Anyhow,
One day.
that's going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and even your quest rogue. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend.
You win this time.